Gray Anderson glanced at his watch and winced as he wiped down the sticky counter at Murphy's Bar and Grill. 9:30 on a Friday night, 2 more hours until his shift ended, and his babysitter charged extra after midnight. Scraping by on a bartender's salary while raising a 7-year-old daughter solo wasn't the life he'd planned. But Lily was worth every struggle, every exhausted morning, every skipped meal when money got tight. "Another round for table 12, called Mac, the veteran server who'd shown Gray the ropes when he'd started 6 months ago. Gray nodded, already reaching for the glasses. 2 drafts and a vodka soda coming up. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, the result of taking every available shift since his layoff from the construction company last year. The door swung open, letting in a gust of autumn air and a woman who immediately caught Gray's attention. Not because of her obvious beauty, though, with her dark curls and striking features. She certainly had that, but because of the barely contained panic in her eyes. She wore an elegant black dress that probably cost more than his monthly rent, but her composure was clearly fracturing. She slid onto a bar stool at the far end, her eyes darting toward the door. Gray finished pouring the drinks for table 12 and moved down the bar. "What can I get you?" "Just water, please," she said, her voice steady despite her evident anxiety, "and possibly an escape route." Gray raised an eyebrow as he placed a glass of water with lemon in front of her. "Trouble?" She took a sip, leaving a faint lipstick mark on the glass. "My date is in the restroom. He's been inappropriate, insistent. I need to leave, but my car is at the restaurant where we met, 6 blocks from here." Gray had seen this scenario play out before. "Name's Gray, I can call you a rideshare." "Winter," she replied, extending a slender hand. "Winter Lane, and thank you, but he might see me waiting outside." Gray assessed the situation quickly. The woman Winter was clearly distressed, and his protective instincts, honed by fatherhood, kicked in. "How about this? There's a back exit through the kitchen. I can have Mac cover the bar for 2 minutes while I walk you out. There's a taxi stand around the corner." Relief washed over her face. That would be. The men's room door swung open, and a tall man in an expensive suit emerged, scanning the bar. Winter tensed. "That's him," she whispered. The man spotted Winter and frowned, striding toward the bar with entitlement in every step. Gray recognized the type immediately, the kind of guy who believed his money could buy anything or anyone. "There you are," the man said to Winter, his tone falsely pleasant. "I thought perhaps you'd gotten lost." Winter straightened her shoulders. "Richard, I was just about to text you. I'm not feeling well. I think I should head home." Richard's jaw tightened. "Don't be ridiculous. The night's just beginning. I've got reservations at Skyline for after drinks." He placed a possessive hand on her arm. Gray intervened smoothly. "Sir, can I get you a drink?" Richard barely glanced at Gray. "Scotch, neat. Make it Macallan 25 if you have it." Gray nodded, moving away to prepare the drink, but keeping an eye on the situation. He could see Winter trying to extricate herself, Richard leaning closer, insistent. When Gray returned with the scotch, Winter looked increasingly uncomfortable. $15, Gray said, setting down the drink. Richard looked offended. "15 for this? What is this?" "Well, scotch." "Macallan 12. We don't carry the 25, Richard scoffed. "Figures." He pulled out a credit card and tossed it on the bar. "Open a tab." Gray caught Winter's eye, giving her a subtle nod. She understood immediately. "I really need to use the ladies' room," she said, sliding off her stool. Richard frowned. "Hurry back. Our next reservation is at 11. As Winter walked toward the restrooms, Gray turned to Richard. "So, what brings you to this neighborhood? We don't usually see many suits in here." Richard looked around with undisguised disdain. Clearly. This was her suggestion for a drink. "A mistake I won't repeat." Gray processed the drinks for table 7 as he kept Richard talking. After a few minutes, he caught Mac's eye and gave a subtle nod. Mac drifted over. "Can you watch the bar for 2 minutes?" "Inventory check in the back," Gray said quietly. Mac, a veteran of bar dynamics, understood immediately. "No problem." Gray slipped into the back hallway where Winter was waiting anxiously by the ladies' room door. "This way," he said, guiding her toward the kitchen. "My buddy will keep him occupied." The kitchen was hot and chaotic, but the staff barely noticed as Gray led Winter through to the back door that opened onto a quiet alley. "Thank you," Winter said once they were outside. I can't tell you how uncomfortable that was getting. No need to thank me. No one deserves to feel trapped. Gray peered out toward the street. The taxi stand is just around the corner. I'll walk you. Winter hesitated. Won't you get in trouble for leaving? Worth it, Gray said simply. Let's go. They hurried down the alley and around the corner. The autumn night was cool, and Gray noticed Winter shiver slightly in her sleeveless dress. Here, he said, shrugging off his flannel overshirt and offering it to her, leaving himself in a plain black t-shirt. Winter looked surprised but accepted the shirt, draping it over her shoulders. Thank you for everything. As they reached the taxi stand, Gray spotted an available cab and flagged it down. Get home safe, okay? And maybe next time meet somewhere public for a first date. Bring a friend, Winter smiled, and for the first time that evening it reached her eyes. I will. Your shirt, Gray waved dismissively. Keep it. I've got plenty. A lie. He had exactly 3 decent shirts, and this was one of them, but something about the gratitude in her eyes made the sacrifice worthwhile. I wish I could do something to thank you properly, Winter said, hesitating before getting into the cab. Gray shook his head. Just paying it forward. Have a good night, Winter. She looked like she wanted to say more but simply nodded. Goodbye, Gray. As the taxi pulled away, Gray hurried back to the bar, hoping Richard hadn't caused a scene. To his relief, the man was gone, having apparently closed his tab and left after realizing Winter had escaped. Everything okay? Mac asked when Gray returned to his position. Gray nodded. Yeah. Thanks for covering. No problem, guys like that are the worst. Mac grinned. Plus, he tipped 20% thinking it was me who served him the whole time. Gray laughed, turning his attention back to his job. For the rest of his shift, his thoughts occasionally drifted to Winter Lane, hoping she'd made it home safely. He'd probably never see her again, but he felt good knowing he'd helped someone out of a bad situation. Little did he know that Winter Lane was not just any woman, and that chance encounter would soon change his life forever. The following Tuesday, Gray was juggling 3 tasks at once, helping Lily with her homework, preparing a simple dinner of mac and cheese with broccoli, and trying to make sense of the past due notice from the electric company. Dad, I don't understand this problem, Lily said, pushing her math worksheet across their small kitchen table. Gray wiped his hands on a dish towel and leaned over his daughter's shoulder. Her dark hair was pulled into a lopsided ponytail that he'd attempted that morning, and her gray eyes, so like his own, were narrowed in concentration. Let's see, kiddo. If Sarah has 24 stickers and wants to give the same number to each of her 6 friends, how many does each friend get? Lily chewed her lip. Do I add or multiply? Well, you're dividing them equally, right? So which operation does that sound like? Division. Lily's face brightened. So 24 divided by 6 equals. She counted on her fingers. 4, each friend gets 4 stickers. That's my girl, Gray said, dropping a kiss on top of her head. The timer on the stove beeped, and he hurried to drain the pasta before it overcooked. A knock on the door interrupted their evening routine. Gray frowned. They rarely had unexpected visitors, especially on weeknights. Finish that last problem while I check the door. Okay, Lily pad. Lily nodded, already bending over her worksheet with renewed confidence. Gray opened the door to find Winter Lane standing in the hallway of his modest apartment building. She looked different than she had at the bar, still elegant, but more casual in dark jeans and a simple blouse. Her hair was pulled back, accentuating her high cheekbones and wide blue eyes. Winter, he asked, genuinely shocked. How did you find you? She looked slightly embarrassed. I went back to the bar yesterday. Your colleague Mac, I think, told me your full name. I hope you don't mind. I wanted to return your shirt and thank you properly. Only then did Gray notice she was holding a neatly folded package that he recognized as his flannel shirt. You didn't need to do that, he said, still bewildered by her presence. Dad, who's there? Lily called from the kitchen. Winter's expression softened at the sound of the child's voice. I'm interrupting family time. I'm so sorry. No, it's Gray hesitated, then opened the door wider. Would you like to come in? We're just having dinner, nothing fancy, just mac and cheese. Winter looked surprised by the invitation. Are you sure? I don't want to impose. It's fine, there's plenty. Another lie. He'd have to skip seconds to make sure there was enough, but something about Winter's hesitant smile made him want to extend the hospitality. Winter stepped inside, taking in the small but tidy apartment with a glance. There were toys tucked neatly in a basket by the couch, books stacked on end tables, and framed photos of Lily at various ages on the walls. "This is my daughter, Lily," Gray said as they entered the kitchen. "Lily, this is Miss Lane. She's a friend from work." Lily looked up, assessing Winter with the frank curiosity of a 7-year-old. "Did you finish your homework too?" Winter laughed, a warm sound that filled the small kitchen. "I finished school a long time ago, but I remember homework. Are you working on math?" Lily nodded. "Division, it's tricky." "It can be," Winter agreed, setting the folded shirt on an empty chair. "But it's very useful." Gray turned back to the stove, adding the cheese sauce to the pasta and stirring in the steamed broccoli. "Would you like to stay for dinner?" "It's nothing special, but I'd love to," Winter said quickly. "Can I help with anything?" Gray shook his head, a little embarrassed by the simplicity of their meal compared to the restaurants someone like Winter must frequent. "Just need to put it on plates." "Lily, can you get the water glasses, please?" Dinner was surprisingly comfortable. Winter engaged Lily in conversation about school and her favorite subjects, showing genuine interest in the child's animated descriptions of her art projects and her best friend Emma's new puppy. Gray found himself watching Winter, trying to reconcile the elegant, clearly wealthy woman from the bar with this person who seemed so at ease in his modest home, eating boxed mac and cheese with a plastic fork. They only had 3 proper forks, and Gray had given those to Winter and Lily. After dinner, when Lily went to finish her homework in her room, Winter helped Gray clear the dishes despite his protests. "I never properly thanked you," she said, handing him a plate to load into the dishwasher. "What you did the other night, it meant a lot to me." Gray shrugged. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," Winter said firmly. "They wouldn't have. Most people would have looked the other way. You didn't." There was a moment of silence as Gray rinsed a cup. "Is everything okay now? That guy didn't try to contact you again, did he?" Winter shook her head. "No." Richard was a first date, a setup through a business connection. Clearly a mistake. Gray nodded. There was so much he wanted to ask her, starting with how she could afford the designer watch he'd noticed on her wrist, which probably cost more than his car, but it seemed intrusive. "Gray," Winter said softly, "I have a confession to make. I didn't just come here to return your shirt. I wanted to offer you something." Gray tensed slightly. He'd been down this road before, well-meaning people who discovered his situation and wanted to help with charity that chipped away at his pride. "I'm doing fine, Winter. We're doing fine." His tone was perhaps sharper than intended. Winter looked startled. "No, that's not. I mean, I wanted to offer you a job." This caught Gray off guard. "A job?" Winter nodded. "I own a company, Lane Innovations. We're expanding our corporate headquarters, and we need someone to oversee the construction project management." "Mac mentioned you used to work in construction before bartending." Gray blinked, processing this information. "You own Lane Innovations, the tech company?" Winter nodded, looking slightly uncomfortable. Yes, Gray knew of Lane Innovations. Everyone did. It was one of the fastest-growing technology companies in the country, specializing in sustainable energy solutions, which meant Winter Lane wasn't just wealthy, she was likely a billionaire. "Why would you offer me a job? You don't know anything about my qualifications." Winter met his gaze steadily. "I know you have integrity, I know you're resourceful, and yes, I did some research. You were a project manager at Cornerstone Construction for 8 years before they downsized. Your former employer gave you an excellent reference when I called." Gray was speechless. The idea that this woman, this extraordinarily successful businesswoman, had gone to such lengths after a brief encounter was astonishing. "Look," Winter continued, "I need someone I can trust on this project, someone who won't be intimidated by deadlines or budgets. The position pays well, very well, and includes comprehensive benefits. Health insurance, retirement plan, the works." Health insurance. Gray's heart skipped a beat. Lily had asthma, and the cost of her medications and treatments without proper insurance was crippling, but pride made him hesitate. "I appreciate the offer, but I don't want charity." Winter's eyes flashed. "This isn't charity, Gray, this is business. I need the best person for the job, and I think that's you. But if you're not interested—" "I didn't say that," Gray interrupted. This is a lot to process. Winter reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. Think about it. Come to my office tomorrow, see the project plans. Then decide. Gray took the card, turning it over in his hands. Why are you really doing this, Winter? She hesitated, then answered with unexpected candor. Because in a world where most people look out only for themselves, you helped a stranger with no expectation of reward. That's rare. And in my business, I've learned to recognize value when I see it. Before Gray could respond, Lily bounded back into the kitchen, proudly displaying her completed homework. All done. Can we play Uno now? Miss Lane, do you know how to play Uno? Winter smiled at the child. I do, but I should probably get going. It's getting late. Lily's face fell slightly. Oh. Okay, but maybe another time, Winter suggested, looking to Gray for permission. Gray found himself nodding. Sure, another time. He walked Winter to the door, still clutching her business card. Tomorrow at 10, she asked. The address is on the card. I'll be there, Gray promised. Surprising himself with his certainty, Winter smiled, a genuine smile that transformed her already beautiful face into something luminous. Good, and Gray, thanks for dinner. It was the best meal I've had in a long time. After she left, Gray stood at the closed door, trying to make sense of the evening. He glanced at the business card again, at the embossed logo of Lane Innovations and the title under Winter's name, founder and CEO, Dad. Is Miss Lane your girlfriend? Lily asked, appearing at his elbow. Gray laughed, tucking the card into his pocket. No, sweetheart, she's just a friend. She's nice, Lily declared. And pretty, like a princess in a business suit. Gray smiled, ruffling his daughter's hair. Come on, let's play that Uno game before bedtime. As they dealt the colorful cards, Gray couldn't help but wonder what the next day would bring, and whether he was about to make a decision that would change their lives forever. The Lane Innovations headquarters occupied a sleek glass building in the heart of downtown. Gray, dressed in the one suit he owned purchased for his brother's wedding 3 years earlier, felt distinctly out of place among the polished professionals striding through the lobby. I have an appointment with Winter Lane, he told the receptionist, half expecting to be turned away. To his surprise, the young man's expression shifted to one of immediate deference. Mr. Anderson, yes, Miss Lane is expecting you. Please take the express elevator to the top floor. The top floor, of course. The elevator rose swiftly, giving Gray a momentary glimpse of the city sprawling below before the doors opened directly into a spacious reception area. Another assistant greeted him and led him through to Winter's office, a corner space with floor-to-ceiling windows and surprisingly minimalist decor. Winter was standing by a conference table covered with blueprints. She wore a tailored navy pantsuit, her hair twisted into a sophisticated knot, looking every inch the powerful CEO. Yet when she looked up, her smile was the same genuine one she'd given Lily the night before. Gray, thank you for coming, she said, extending her hand. How was the trip downtown? Fine, he replied, shaking her hand firmly. I had to arrange for Lily to go to a friend's house after school if this runs long. Winter nodded. I appreciate you making the time. Coffee, please. As Winter poured coffee from a carafe, Gray took in the office the awards displayed discreetly on one wall. The framed photo of Winter shaking hands with the president, the scale model of what appeared to be a solar installation. So, Winter said, handing him a cup, let me tell you about the project. For the next hour, she laid out her vision, a new research and development campus on the edge of the city. Sustainable, cutting edge, with collaborative spaces and environmental considerations built into every aspect of the design. We've got the architects and contractors lined up, Winter explained, but I need someone to oversee the entire project from our side. Someone who understands both the construction process and our company's values. Gray studied the plans with growing interest. These geothermal systems, they're ambitious. But feasible, don't you think? Gray nodded slowly. With the right team, yes. He pointed to another section of the blueprints. I'd recommend adjusting the staging area here. You'll save on equipment transfers and probably cut 2 weeks off the timeline. Winter watched him, a hint of a smile playing at her lips. What else? Gradually, Gray found himself fully engaged, pointing out potential efficiencies, asking questions about materials. suggesting modifications that would streamline the construction process without compromising the design. "This is exactly why I want you for this position," Winter said when they finally took a break. "You see solutions where others see only problems." Gray leaned back, suddenly remembering who he was talking to. This woman was worth billions, running a company that was changing the world, and yet she was treating his input as valuable. "Winter, I have to ask, why me? There must be dozens of qualified project managers in your network." Winter set down her coffee cup. "Walk with me." She led him through a door in her office to a private terrace overlooking the city. The autumn breeze ruffled her hair as she leaned against the railing. "When I started Lane Innovations, I was 24 and had just inherited my father's failing energy company," she said. "Everyone expected me to sell it off. Instead, I pivoted to sustainable technologies when most people thought I was crazy." Gray listened, fascinated. "I learned to trust my instincts about people," Winter continued. "The night we met, you showed character. You didn't know who I was, you just saw someone who needed help." "Anyone would have." "No," Winter interrupted firmly. "Most wouldn't, most didn't. Several people saw what was happening and looked away." She turned to face him directly. "The salary is $150,000 annually, plus performance bonuses. Full benefits package effective immediately. The project will take approximately 18 months, but the position is permanent if you want it." Gray felt lightheaded. That salary was more than triple what he'd made at his previous job. It would mean security for Lily. A better apartment. College savings. "What about my lack of experience with this scale of project?" he asked, still cautious. "You'll have support. A team. I don't expect you to know everything day one." Winter's expression was earnest. "What I need is someone with integrity, someone who can learn and adapt." "I believe that's you." Gray stared out at the city, thinking of Lily, of the nights he'd lain awake wondering how to give her the life she deserved. "When would you need me to start?" he asked. Winter's face lit up. "Is that a yes?" "It's a yes," Gray confirmed, surprising himself with his certainty. 2 weeks. Would that give you enough time to transition from the bar?" Gray nodded, still processing the enormous change that had just occurred in his life. "I'll need to arrange different after-school care for Lily." "We have an employee family center on the 3rd floor," Winter said. "Children of employees can come after school. They have tutors, activities, everything." Gray looked at her in amazement. "You've thought of everything," Winter smiled. "I try to, so partners," she extended her hand. Gray took it, feeling the warmth of her grip. Partners. Later that afternoon, as Gray rode the elevator down to the lobby, he felt as though he was floating. He had a job, a real career opportunity with benefits that would change his and Lily's lives. All because he'd helped a woman escape a bad date, never knowing she was a billionaire who would see something in him worth investing in. What he didn't yet realize was that Winter Lane saw much more in Gray Anderson than just a potential employee. She saw a man of principle, a devoted father, and perhaps, if she was lucky, the one person who might love her for herself rather than her fortune. Over the next several weeks, Gray's life transformed. He gave notice at Murphy's, where Mac clapped him on the back and said, "About time someone recognized what you're worth, Anderson." He found a better apartment closer to Lily's school, nothing lavish, but with 2 proper bedrooms and a small balcony where he could grow the herbs Lily loved to help tend. Most importantly, he was able to take Lily to a specialist for her asthma, covered by his new insurance. His first day at Lane Innovations was intimidating but exhilarating. Winter had assembled a talented team, and Gray found himself energized by the collaborative atmosphere and the ambitious vision behind the project. What surprised him most, however, was Winter herself. Despite her position and wealth, she was hands-on, often joining project meetings and asking insightful questions. She worked harder than anyone else, sometimes sending emails at 3 a.m. that showed she'd been reviewing plans well into the night. Their professional relationship quickly developed into a productive partnership. Gray appreciated her clear vision and decisive leadership, while Winter valued his practical expertise and straightforward approach. "You're the only person here who tells me when my ideas won't work," she told him after a particularly vigorous debate over building materials. "Just doing my job," Gray had replied, though he felt a flush of pride at her words. As October turned to November, Winter began stopping by Gray's office more frequently, often with questions that could have been handled by email. Sometimes she brought coffee or suggested they review plans over lunch. Gray found himself looking forward to these interactions more than he cared to admit. There was something about Winter, her sharp intelligence, her unexpected humor, the way her eyes lit up when discussing innovations that drew him to her, but he kept a professional distance. She was his boss, after all, and he couldn't afford to misinterpret friendly collegiality for something more. Besides, women like Winter Lane didn't end up with single fathers who were just getting back on their feet. Then came the day of Lily's school play, a Thanksgiving production where his daughter had been cast as the lead turkey. Gray had requested the afternoon off weeks in advance, but a crisis with the geothermal drilling contractor threatened to keep him at work. "Go," Winter said firmly when he explained the situation. "I'll handle the contractor." "But the meeting is less important than your daughter's play," Winter finished. "Family comes first, Gray, always." He'd thanked her and rushed to the elementary school, sliding into a seat just as the curtain rose. The sight of Lily in her handmade turkey costume, beaming as she delivered her lines, made everything else fade away. What he didn't expect was to glance to his left midway through the performance and see Winter slipping into the seat beside him. "What are you doing here?" he whispered, stunned. "I handled the contractor," she whispered back. "And I thought, if you wouldn't mind." "I'd like to see Lily's performance." Something warm unfurled in Gray's chest. "She'll be thrilled you came." After the play, Lily ran to him, still in her turkey costume, feathers slightly askew. "Did you see me, Dad? Did you see how I remembered all my lines?" "You were amazing, kiddo," Gray said, hugging her tightly. "And look who came to see you too." Lily's eyes widened when she spotted Winter. "Miss Lane, you came to my play." Winter knelt down, not caring about her expensive suit touching the gymnasium floor. "I wouldn't have missed it." "You were the best turkey I've ever seen." Lily giggled, then asked with a child's directness, "Do you want to come to our house for Thanksgiving? Dad makes the best stuffing and I help with the cranberry sauce." Gray started to interject. Surely Winter had elegant plans with family or friends, but Winter spoke first. "I would love that, Lily," she said softly. "If your dad doesn't mind." Gray looked at Winter, really looked at her, and saw something vulnerable in her expression. "We'd be happy to have you," he said. "It's nothing fancy, but there's always plenty of food." Winter's smile was radiant. "Those are the best kind of Thanksgivings." Later that night, after Lily was asleep, Gray found himself thinking about Winter's acceptance of their invitation. It struck him that despite her success and wealth, there was a loneliness about her that he recognized. He'd felt it himself in the years since his wife had left them, claiming she wasn't cut out for motherhood after all. His phone buzzed with a text message. "Winter, thank you for letting me come to Lily's play. She was wonderful." Gray smiled as he typed back, "Gray, thanks for coming. It meant a lot to her, and to me." "Winter, I meant what I said about Thanksgiving, but only if you're sure." Gray hesitated, then typed, "Gray, I'm sure." "Lily's already planning where you'll sit." Winter, Gray. "Yes, Winter, this isn't just about the job for me. I hope you know that." Gray stared at the message, his heart racing. Before he could overthink it, he typed, "Gray, it's not just about the job for me either." The three dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. "Winter, good. I'll see you tomorrow at the site meeting." Gray, looking forward to it. He set his phone down, a smile spreading across his face. Perhaps there was something developing between them, after all, something unexpected and wonderful. Thanksgiving arrived with a crisp, clear sky and the promise of new beginnings. Gray had spent the previous day preparing, teaching Lily how to make his mother's cornbread stuffing recipe and brining the turkey in a mixture of herbs and citrus. "Do you think Miss Lane will like my decorations?" Lily asked, surveying the handmade paper turkeys and fall leaves she'd arranged around the apartment. "She'll love them," Gray assured her, straightening a particularly colorful leaf. "Everything looks perfect." When the doorbell rang at noon, Lily raced to answer it. Winter stood in the hallway, looking different from her usual corporate self in a simple burgundy sweater and dark jeans, her hair loose around her shoulders. She carried a bakery box and a small gift bag. "Happy Thanksgiving," she said, her smile slightly nervous. I brought pie from Giuseppe's bakery and something for Lily. You didn't need to bring anything, Gray said, taking the bakery box. I wanted to. Winter knelt to Lily's level. This is for you, a small Thanksgiving present. Lily opened the gift bag carefully, her eyes widening as she pulled out a beautiful leather-bound book. Wow, the complete collection of children's poetry. Dad, look. That's beautiful, Gray said, genuinely touched. Lily loves poetry. How did you know? Winter looked slightly embarrassed. She mentioned it at her play how she had to memorize a poem for class and enjoyed it. The fact that Winter had listened so carefully to his daughter, had remembered something so specific, made Gray's chest tighten with emotion. Come in, he said, his voice rougher than intended. Dinner's almost ready. The afternoon unfolded with unexpected ease. They ate at the small dining table, which Gray had extended with a folding table to accommodate the feast. Winter complimented the food genuinely, especially the stuffing that Gray had prepared from his family recipe. This is delicious, she said, taking another serving. I've never had homemade stuffing before. Gray looked surprised. Never, Winter shook her head. My Thanksgivings growing up were different, catered affairs with my father's business associates. After he died, I usually worked through the holiday. Well, you're always welcome here, Lily declared with a child's certainty. Right, Dad, absolutely, Gray agreed, meeting Winter's eyes across the table. Something passed between them, understanding, connection, possibility. After dinner, they played board games while the pie warmed in the oven. Winter proved to be fiercely competitive at Scrabble, making them all laugh with her victory dance when she placed quixotic on a triple word score. As evening approached, Lily began to yawn, the excitement of the day catching up with her. I think it's bedtime for certain turkeys, Gray said, noting her drooping eyelids. But Miss Lane is still here, Lily protested half-heartedly. Winter smiled. I should probably head home soon too. But thank you for including me in your Thanksgiving. It was the best one I've had in, well, maybe ever. Will you read me one poem from my new book before you go? Lily asked hopefully. Winter glanced at Gray, who nodded his permission. I'd be honored. While Winter accompanied Lily to her bedroom for the poem, Gray tidied the kitchen, reflecting on the day. It had been perfect, comfortable, joyful, as if Winter had always been a part of their small family circle. When Winter emerged from Lily's room 15 minutes later, her expression was soft. She fell asleep halfway through the second poem. I hope that's okay, I didn't want to wake her. It's fine, Gray assured her. Thank you for the book, it was a thoughtful gift. She's an amazing child, Gray, Winter said. You're doing an incredible job with her. Pride and a touch of defensiveness flared in him. We manage. It hasn't always been easy, but I know, Winter interrupted gently. That's what makes it all the more impressive. They stood in the small living room, suddenly awkward in a way they hadn't been all day. I should probably go, Winter said, though she made no move toward the door, or you could stay for coffee, Gray suggested. If you want. Winter's smile was answer enough. They settled on the couch with mugs of coffee, the apartment quiet except for the soft music playing from Gray's old stereo system. Can I ask you something personal? Gray ventured. Winter nodded, cradling her mug. Of course. Why were you on that date with Richard? He seemed not your type. Winter laughed softly. Definitely not my type. It was a favor to a board member. His nephew was new in town. I agreed to one dinner to be polite. She paused. Dating is complicated when you're in my position. Gray raised an eyebrow. Because you're a CEO. Because I'm a female CEO with a net worth that makes most men either intimidated or interested for all the wrong reasons, Winter clarified. It's hard to know who wants to know me versus who wants what I represent. Gray considered this. I can see how that would be difficult. What about you? Winter asked. Lily mentioned her mother isn't in the picture. Gray sighed, setting down his coffee mug. Amanda left when Lily was 2, said she wasn't ready for motherhood after all. She lives in California now, sends birthday cards sometimes. Winter's hand covered his briefly. I'm sorry. Don't be. Lily and I are better off, Gray said, surprised by how much he meant it. It was hard at first, but we found our rhythm. They talked for hours, moving from personal histories to favorite books, from travel dreams to professional aspirations. Gray found himself sharing things he rarely discussed: his hopes for Lily's future, his abandoned dream of starting his own construction company someday. Winter listened intently, asking questions that showed genuine interest rather than polite conversation. In turn, she spoke of the early days of Lane Innovations, the challenges she'd faced as a young female CEO, and her vision for expanding sustainable technologies globally. "I should let you get some rest," Winter said finally, glancing at the clock that showed it was nearly midnight. "Thank you again for today. It meant more than you know." As Gray walked her to the door, he felt a pull toward her that had been building all day, all month, if he was honest with himself. When she turned to say goodbye, he took a chance. "Winter," he said softly, "I'd like to see you again." Not as colleagues, as whatever this is becoming. Winter's eyes widened slightly, hope and uncertainty warring in her expression. "Are you sure? My life is complicated, Gray. The public scrutiny, the demands of the company." "I'm sure," he said simply, "if you are." In answer, Winter stepped closer and gently pressed her lips to his. The kiss was brief, but filled with promise of understanding, of possibility, of a connection that had nothing to do with wealth or status, and everything to do with who they were together. When they separated, Winter's smile was luminous. "I've wanted to do that since you offered me your flannel shirt in that alley," Gray laughed. "I've wanted to do that since you sat at my kitchen table eating mac and cheese with my daughter." Winter reached up to touch his cheek. "Then I think we should definitely see where this goes." As Winter left, Gray closed the door, leaning against it with a mixture of disbelief and joy. 6 weeks ago, he'd been a struggling bartender, worrying about making rent. Now he had a career he was passionate about, and was beginning a relationship with a remarkable woman who truly saw him for who he was. Life had a strange way of working out sometimes. All because he'd helped a woman escape a bad date, never knowing she was a billionaire who would come to want not his service or his deference, but his heart. 5 years later, the beach house was quiet except for the gentle rhythm of the waves outside. Gray stood on the deck, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. In the distance, a solitary fishing boat bobbed on the horizon, arms slipped around his waist, and Winter's voice, still husky with sleep, murmured in his ear, "Happy anniversary." Gray turned, drawing her into his embrace. At 38, Winter was more beautiful than ever, her success tempered by a happiness that radiated from within. 5 years, he said, kissing her forehead. "Best 5 years of my life." Winter smiled up at him. "Mine too, by far." They stood together, watching the sun climb higher in the sky. The beach house had been Winter's surprise gift to the family last year, a place to escape the pressures of running Lane Innovations, which had tripled in size since Gray had joined the company. Gray now headed his own division, overseeing sustainable construction projects worldwide, while Winter continued as CEO. Their partnership, professional and personal, had become the stuff of business magazine profiles, though they guarded their private life carefully. Mom, Dad. Lily, now 12, emerged onto the deck in her pajamas, her hair a tousled mess. "Is it time for pancakes yet?" "Almost," Gray said, ruffling her hair. "Want to help me make the batter?" "Sure. Can we wake Jamie too?" Lily asked, referring to her 2-year-old brother who was undoubtedly still fast asleep in his room. Winter laughed. "Let him sleep a little longer. He was up late watching the fireworks." As Lily went inside to start gathering ingredients, Winter leaned against Gray, her head on his shoulder. "Did you ever imagine this?" she asked softly. "That night at the bar," Gray shook his head, "not in my wildest dreams. I was just trying to help someone in trouble." "You changed my life that night," Winter said. "Not because you helped me escape a bad date, but because you showed me what real integrity looks like, what real love could be." Gray turned to face her fully. "You changed my life too, not by giving me a job, but by believing in me when I'd almost stopped believing in myself." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn flannel square, a patch cut from the shirt he'd given her that night 5 years ago. "I had this made into a frame for your office," he said. "A reminder of how it all began." Winter's eyes filled with tears as she took the gift. "It's perfect, just like our story." Inside, they could hear Lily singing along to the radio as she started breakfast, Soon Jamie would wake up, demanding stories and hugs with the fierce determination of a toddler. Their family, unexpected, wonderful, built on chance and choice and love, would begin another day together. Gray kissed his wife, a billionaire who had wanted not his deference but his love, and who had given him the same in return. "Let's go make pancakes." Hand in hand, they went inside to join their children, leaving the rising sun to shine on a life neither of them could have imagined on that autumn night when a struggling dad had helped a woman escape a bad date, never knowing she was a billionaire who would want him just as he was.